Be with you. For just a moment, we were all hoping Dr. Williams would preach. Our scripture reading is from the book of Genesis, chapter 32, verses 22 to 31. The same night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 maids, and his 11 children and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and likewise everything that he had. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he struck him on the hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then the man said, "You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with humans and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life is preserved." The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the Israelites do not eat the thigh muscle that is on the hip socket, because he struck Jacob on the hip socket at the thigh muscle. May God bless our hearing and our responding to this word. Ain't Jacob a rascal? I mean, you wouldn't want Jacob for a husband, for a brother, for a father, or for a son, now would you? He's a rascal. The way lots of Christians use the Bible, Jacob shouldn't be in it. We often assume that every biblical story has some clear moral or theological lesson. Where did we get that idea? I sure hope it doesn't apply to Jacob. A very long time ago, Walter Brueggemann did About the Best You Can Do, arguing that Jacob is a case study for God's freedom. God's blessing does not depend on human merit, and I guess that's as good as it gets. We do kind of like rascals. When my daughters were little, I endured way too much kiddie TV. Don't know if that's changed, but those shows are problematic. They tend to revolve around rascals, bratty, privileged kids who routinely outsmart adults, act only in their own self-interest, and make nerds look pitiful by comparison. Not good if you want your kid to grow up strong, brave, compassionate, and just. And we adults are no better with our Real Housewives, bachelors, and bachelorettes. Rascals, though, like Jacob, do real harm. Jacob will take advantage of a brother's vulnerability and steal his inheritance. He'll trick his father to receive a blessing he does not deserve. He will neglect a wife, impregnate a woman he enslaves, treat some children better than others. He won't lift a hand to prevent violence. And yes, Jacob suffers. His father-in-law, Laban, tricks him into marrying the sister he does not love. His brother Esau is out to kill him, and for reasons we can understand. His sons sell their brother Joseph into slavery and fool Jacob into thinking an animal has killed the boy. Then that boy, Joseph, toys with his emotions in order to bring Jacob to him in Egypt. He suffers, ain't no hero. He's a rascal, scoundrel, ne'er-do-well, scalawag. And this night, Jacob is scared. Earlier, he fled from Esau, who's out to kill him, and now he's fled from Laban's sons who are out to kill him. There's no place to go but home, and home means exposing himself to Esau. So Jacob has sent messengers, and they've given a grim report. Esau is coming to meet you with 400 men. So Jacob's scared, sends droves of livestock to pacify his brother, but who knows how that'll turn out. Takes precautions that at least some of his household may survive an attack. Oddly, he sends his wives, the enslaved mothers of some of his children, and the children across the river, but he stays alone on the far side. Wonder what they all thought about that. Hard to tell if Jacob is willing to sacrifice them to protect himself, though the story doesn't turn out that way. Jacob is sure enough scared. Like many of us, when we're afraid, he has a wild night. Well, Jacob's night was wilder than any I've ever had. I don't want to make assumptions about you and your wild nights. But Jacob's stands out as one of the Bible's most memorable, most perplexing moments. All his life, Jacob has wrestled, fought with people and fought with God, metaphorically, relationally. This night, Jacob thinks he's wrestled with God bodily, comes away with a limp and a blessing. Does Jacob come away a changed man? Does Jacob, having wrestled with whom? With an angel? With God's own self? With his own internal demons? Does Jacob emerge from this night-long grappling session and limp away more mature, more wise, more faithful? Does Jacob grow? Does Jacob's blessing transform him? Or does he just have a limp? You and I have had our own moments, our own confrontations with danger, our own harrowing experiences. We know those nights when dread rests heavy on our hearts, when we spin in bed till the sheets get tangled, when we grapple for the cool side of the pillow dozens of times. We know those nights when we would wrestle with God, but God seems absent. We love a good fight, even an injury, if a good wrestling bout would push out the anxiety. We ring the bell persistently, yet God is not there. God won't challenge us. And we don't wake up better persons. We just wake up messy, depleted. Come morning, the danger hasn't gone away. Come morning, Jacob's danger abides. Matter of fact, it's intensified. Come morning, Jacob hasn't slept. And a fair translation of the next verse would read, and Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and yikes, there was Esau with 400 men. And maybe Jacob has changed a little. He arranges the women he's enslaved and their children, then his wives and other children, as if perhaps Esau's violence will burn out before he kills everyone. Favorites to the rear. Jacob even shows a little courage, heading out in front of them, still sure to keep them in view for Esau. A little courage. The writer pauses. Esau greets his brother not with violence, but with an embrace, with a kiss, with tears. We don't know that that was Esau's plan. He has brought these 400 men after all, but this is Esau's greeting, and here's the moment. Esau offers to guide Jacob back home. Let us journey on our way, and I'll go alongside you. What a vulnerable moment. You've stolen the things most precious to me. My inheritance, my father's blessing, my mother's affection. I wanted to kill you, but here I am, reaching out to guide you home. And Jacob hasn't changed. Not really. Esau reaches out so tenderly, But Jacob already has an excuse, never short of them. He says his caravan needs rest. So Esau leaves. Jacob never follows. He hasn't changed. The midnight wrestling match hasn't brought transformation. Jacob goes a different way, his own way, and he will never see Esau again. As far as Genesis is concerned, Jacob is kind of done. From now on, people will mistreat Jacob and his family. A neighbor rapes his daughter, and Jacob stands aside while his sons enact vengeance. His sons sell beloved Joseph into captivity, and they trick Jacob with a little goat's blood and Joseph's special garment. Famine strikes, and Jacob is manipulated by Joseph to come to Egypt. Jacob never acts with power again after this night, except to bless his sons and secure his own burial back in Israel. Looks like the wrestling match has left Jacob with more than a limp. Friends, I wonder. My life has featured some fairly intense spiritual moments. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not gifted as a mystic. It's rare for me to be just overcome with God's presence, but I have been touched by God. Sometimes the encounter leaves a mark. There are moments when I've struggled, aware of God and not aware of God, and I've been changed. I've been wounded. I've grown. But you know what? I'm still selfish, still petty, still perform meanness when I've convinced myself I'm being kind, still hurt the people I love most, still betray the values I hold most dear. I could have 100 nights wrestling with God or an angel or some sacred thing, and those things do not save my soul. They do not. I wonder, our deep encounters mark our lives. They make the high points moments we're prone to remember. They encourage us in hard times. We should be grateful for them, even when they come with hurt. But friends, there never comes a day when we're adequate for God's blessing. Even Pastor Garvey, a Methodist, is only moving on to perfection. Every day we rely on the blessing of God, who gives it freely and justly and unpredictably. We live before God who is somehow both fearsome and kind. God who feels absent yet dwells so very near. God whom we cannot understand, yet who graces us sometimes with revelation. God whose touch sometimes hurts and always heals. Thanks be to God.